There is a difference between judgment and observational awareness. And the difference behind the two is that with judgment, you are identifying a difference and believing that the difference is something that separates you and believing that there's truth in the judgment. Observational awareness is simply noticing the differences and being open to, thinking that it's just a perception, that it's not necessarily a truth. We all make judgments. There's nothing wrong with making judgments. The difference between judgments that are actually harmful and the judgments that can be helpful is the emotional attachment and the belief system that is connected to the judgment. Observational awareness is really just coming from a place of like, oh, well, that's interesting. This is what I'm noticing. Well, that's a fascinating perspective. The way I see it is, and there's an openness to be proven, quote unquote, wrong, to be proven otherwise. You're not attached to your observation. You are merely making a statement through an awareness. And we all make judgments. That's just part of human nature, right? A judgment is neither good or bad unless you tie it to a belief system and begin to make choices from your judgments. Judgments are there to protect us. They are there for us to give a discernment. But the difference, what happens is people don't discern. Discerning is taking different sides of the view, different perspectives, different viewpoints, and making your own informed choice from that. Most people put judgments and biases into categories, and they stick to that without the openness to be proven wrong. We become so attached to these judgments that we wind up dismissing friends. We wind up dismissing other people and other people's perspective, other people's experiences. And we really kind of tend to avoid people and avoid situations because of the emotional attachments made to judgment. Noticing in which ways we make judgments because of our own past experiences, because of our own personal biases, is huge in being able to learn how to change the way we interact with others, right? If we are looking for more connection, we're wanting to begin to learn how to we're wanting to learn how to change a lot of our preconceived notions about why people do things and how people connect. So seeing that there are many different points of view, seeing that our point of view is not the only point of view, and seeing that every point of view is an interesting perspective. It's a smaller piece of the whole picture. Everybody's viewpoint and everybody's experience brings about the unity within the whole humanness. How do we begin to discern from judgments to observational awareness? That's a really great question. Most of my unbecoming, my deconditioning has been about the pause, has been about the stillness. Everything has stemmed and has bloomed. Hello, midnight. From that pause. We can have a thought, right? A lot of us need to learn how to not judge the thought, to just make awareness of the thought. Give that space between our first thought and our action. That's called a response, not a reaction. That pause and that stillness is really where all the work happens. And as simple as it sounds, it takes a lot of work to work that muscle, to give pause to the action, to create a bigger gap between our thoughts and our responses. Most people are so used to having a thought, and then you hear those phrases, right? Like, don't believe every thought you think. And that's just it. A lot of people have an immediate emotional reaction to their thoughts. First, dismissing their thoughts. Second, judging their thoughts. Third, moving forward with that strong emotional reaction. So how do we begin to just put space between? How do we begin to have discerning thoughts? How do we begin to discern our thoughts into what needs action, what doesn't need action, what is just a story we're telling ourselves, and how do we make choices from the observational awareness versus the judgment, the reactivity? Well, again, taking practice, but also practicing that muscle when we're not reactive, right? Going to and learning the pause before we need to use the pause, right? It's a preventative skill. It's something that we learn before we need to use it. And then we begin to introduce it into our every interaction, and it becomes a second muscle. We become the pause. We become the stillness. We become the observational awareness. We become the observer of the situations and the experiences, and we become the observer of our thoughts. But first, everything begins with the stillness. Everything begins with learning how to be in the discomfort, how to navigate that inner hesitancy, that push to want to fix something, that push to want to make things right. It is allowing that and leaning into that. That's where the muscle is created. That's where that strengthen is, when we actually lean into when we want to react, not reacting and leaning into the discomfort. And what I've seen is that upon this skill, right, that comes with meditation. That book, I teach that a weekly meditation class at Twisted Warrior Yoga Studio in Fond du Lac. That's where a lot of the pause, the stillness, the detachment from our thoughts can begin. And learning how to bring that into day-to-day life then, and navigating the emotions that come with pause, and navigating the emotions that come with the judgments, that come with the awareness. That's when we begin to detach from our thoughts and detach from the emotions. And that doesn't mean suppressing them. That just means observing them, witnessing them, and allowing them. So if this sounds like a tool that you can use in your life, I do teach weekly classes on how to cultivate that stillness within. And I also have one-on-one sessions. You can find any of my sessions at the link that is in my description. And until next time, I'm sending so much love.